Bitcoin for a moment popping up above $88,000 and a lot of room to the upside. Altcoin markets coiling up on the weekly chart. Bull market, not even here yet. And we have Ethereum, some patterns that people are tracking on the Ethereum charts. I want to dig into Ethereum on the short term. I think it just gives a great sense and direction for altcoin markets. So it doesn't matter what altcoin you hold. So hit the subscribe and like on the way in. Want to talk about a couple of things. The big news today is the fact that President Trump is no longer expected to impose sector-specific tariffs on April 2nd. Let me discuss this for a moment because this is playing into markets heavily at the confluence of other major things like the Fed pivot. So here's U.S. Treasury Secretary, and this was posted yesterday evening, on April 2nd. And this is so important, everybody, as we get ready to enter April for Bitcoin, for crypto. On April 2nd, we are going to produce a list of other countries' tariffs. And we're going to go to them and say, here's where we think the tariff levels are, non-tariff barriers, currency manipulation. If you stop this, we will not put up the tariff wall. There is an extreme amount of negotiation going on right now. And I think we are going to see major deals in the first week of April. And this could be a huge catalyst for markets. We're already seeing a little bit of a catalyst based on this news here. But please keep in mind what April 2nd is all about. And I posted this March 10th, a couple weeks ago. So many people saying tariffs are putting us into a bear market. And let me just say to you, the tariff headlines, the bear market fear headlines because of tariffs, they are being used to manipulate and shake people out of these markets while massive money buys, because that's what's happening. I said we're not entering a bear market. In reality, the tariff wars will probably be settled in April. Many people are probably selling close to the bottom, sadly, right before quantitative tightening ends and the altcoin bull market begins. And here is some data on that. Goldman Sachs predicts heavy buying of U.S. stocks in coming days and weeks. This was yesterday as well. And this is just data. This isn't an opinion. Wealthy individuals, we just recently saw this. Wealthy individuals are rushing into U.S. stocks. Such a surge in purchases has not been seen for 2.5 years. When the group's inflows hit 6% of assets under management in September 2022, near the bottom of the bear market. Huge money piling in, and we've seen what sentiment is from a retail perspective in these markets and in crypto. And I really think the big money and the manipulators that are out there are using these tariff headlines to just shake people out. And here we are on the Bitcoin chart. So I want to look at the Bitcoin charts on the weekly, and then I really want to look at the daily, kind of just talk about the move that we're currently in, what upside could look like, and what to anticipate in terms of potential resistance, I should say. But the resistance area is really a bull market confirmation area as well. Now we're going to look at altcoins, specifically Ethereum. So here's Bitcoin on the weekly. This is going to be a big week, especially as we get ready to go into the first week of April. And this is getting interesting now on this oscillator, this RSI here. You can just see this lower high downtrend that Bitcoin has been in for months, since December, since kind of topping out at all-time high. What we're looking for is a break above this trend line. Now, I want to point something to your attention. If you start zooming out on this, and we've tracked this, look at all of these kind of very similar setups on the RSI, just lower highs, and then finally we get a breakout. So these breakouts that occur, and this is going all the way back to the 2019 bear market exit out of the 2018 bear market, right? So this exit back here, we see Bitcoin pretty much every time put in a massive move after we're getting that breakout of this RSI line. And if you go back and you just look at all of these moves, there's two things to note. Number one, these moves did lead to a new uptrend. But number two, if you actually look at something like October 2022, we get the breakout, and then we need to retest. We need to put in a retest of the trend line. And that's something I think we should anticipate in case we get a breakout. It doesn't mean it's game on, off to the races. Bitcoin could break out of the trend line on the RSI and actually do a retest, right? And kind of test people's patience a little bit more. And that's kind of what happened here. We're breaking out on the RSI, and then boom, big red weekly candle. And I'm saying that because as we're evaluating the weekly chart, and you'll see in a moment on the daily there could still be just this bottoming out formation that Bitcoin and crypto needs to go through. But I will say this, after all of this consolidation on the RSI, after all of this consolidation into oversold and high fear environments, finally, I think we're coming to a very extreme pivot point. But that doesn't come without potential short-term pain. And we can get a glance of this on the daily chart. So a couple things to note. Before we even talk about the really fun targets up here, the real bullish confirmation area on Bitcoin, there are resistance areas, and we're going to see something similar on Ethereum charts. Like, for instance, the 50-day moving average is right here around $90,000. So it's very nice to see this 20-day kind of just right below that 200 and kind of trying to make a pivot. This is exactly what we want to see. This is what we saw in the last consolidation back here, right? Just the pivot of these moving averages. But before we even talk about like reversals in, continuation of bull market, what we really need to see is a lower high, like a midterm lower high, which is right here, broken. And we need to see daily candles above it. And that might take a little bit of time. And I just want to put that out there. So we could get a move even through the 50-day moving average, but we get a move to 97 to around $102,000. That's a very key resistance area. We might see resistance there, and we might just fall into some type of continued consolidation. This is what crypto does a lot. And we're already having our patience tested. We could have our patience tested even more. So this is something to consider. And a very good illustration would be actually in the last consolidation that we had. Patience being tested. So you see this 20-day crossing below the 50, and then boom, we're just pivoting right off that 200 right there. This is kind of a move we just got. 20 crossing below the 50, right now pivoting off the 200. Well, what happened after the pivot off the 200? The 20, making a move to upside. Bitcoin made a move through the 50, right? We want to see a move like that now. We want to see Bitcoin break through the 50 now, but it continued higher, and then it topped out. Where did it top out? It topped out from swing high to the swing low, and it was just this lower high Fibonacci range in that consolidation, and Bitcoin put in a lower low, and that was the bottom. So it looked terrible, the resistance here, and then we're actually falling for like a week, maybe even more there. Looked terrible, but that was the bottom. That was the end of it. So I want to go here, and I want to look at just the potential for a similar move, meaning we have a very similar setup in terms of just moving averages setups and structure setup. So swing high, swing low, back to the Fibonacci if Bitcoin can make it somewhere to this range. Again, 97,000 to around 102,000. Back to the range, and then we'll see what consolidation could look like. We could put in a higher low, right? And then boom, we're continuing. We could do what we did last time, capitulate into the 70s. People are freaking out, bear market, and that's the actual bottom. But either way, you see after all this consolidation, we're getting to very critical time for the true reversal here for crypto markets. And all in all, I want to say this. Remember what's happening. We're getting very close to a bullish monetary cycle move from the Fed. That is to say, the end of quantitative tightening, at least in April, the slowing down of quantitative tightening. And with that comes this green line, Fed net liquidity. And so this, not even just having QE and quantitative easing, this can trend higher. And this is very good for Bitcoin and for crypto. We start seeing that trend higher because if we look at historically on the Bitcoin charts, and if I just kind of move this up a little bit, you can just see there's a strong correlation with Fed net liquidity and Bitcoin. And that's what we're seeing. That's what we want to see. Bitcoin just kind of ride the wave of that Fed net liquidity increasing at the slowing down of quantitative tightening. Want to just draw your attention as we pivot to altcoins. Look at actually how Bitcoin has kind of diverged, right? There's not been just this crazy pump in Fed net liquidity, but Bitcoin has actually performed very well. If you go look at an altcoin chart, right, in the same regard, it really hasn't. It is correlated to this, but this has not performed nearly as well as Bitcoin, right? And so that's what people are waiting for in terms of altcoin markets. You can even just see altcoin markets have not even broken, really. This is excluding Bitcoin. This is completely every altcoin has not broken all-time high. Bitcoin has. This is so bearish to a lot of people, but to me, this is so bullish. this indicates to me, especially because we do have these hints that Fed net liquidity will start trending higher. This indicates to me that the altcoin bull market hasn't happened yet. It's very simple. And so while, yes, Bitcoin has absolutely outperformed, and I think that has a lot to do with the Bitcoin supply shock and everything going on with Bitcoin, with governments buying Bitcoin, the ETF demand, the U.S. Treasury, Bitcoin Treasury, right? All of these things are playing into Bitcoin supply shock, and I think that will get greater. That's why we're talking about some crazy price targets, not in a specific video. With that being said, that move for altcoins is coming. And so this is what excites me about altcoins, especially as we see this chart. It's just a coiling up, right? We've seen higher lows so far, and even after this recent consolidation, we're still holding a higher low on altcoins. This is awesome. Now we start getting hints on the Ethereum charts, what to look for. Because I really think the Ethereum chart, though many are just calling Ethereum done for, and I don't think it's going to perform very well against many altcoins, specifically even blue chips like Cardano. I don't think it's going to do great. But this chart is very important for all of those altcoins because I think it indicates kind of the general direction of the altcoin markets and the breakout of the bull market. So let's dissect the Ethereum chart. And I want to actually start with very fast clip. This is from February 28th. Just around a month ago, just under a month ago. What has happened for Ethereum is we broke through the lower trend line. What I'm evaluating for is a potential bounce to the trend line. So it's most illustrated on the 6th. All right, so that pullback, the busted pattern, that's in February. Here we are, March 9th. This potential busted pattern where it just pulls March 9th. Here we are. This was from March 15th, right? We broke to the downside, and what we've been talking about is the potential for the pullback. If you can't tell, I really like busted patterns. I really like tracking them. It doesn't always set up. It really doesn't. But oftentimes in a structured move, we get these moves. And I'm talking about pullbacks. I'm also talking about throwbacks. And we see this time and time again. We've been tracking it on Bitcoin for months. The throwback to the neckline of the inverse head and shoulders. This is technical analysis, everybody. And it's not me doing anything. It's not me predicting anything. It's just me taking the rules of technical analysis and tracking it with you all. And the reason I replay these clips is because I really want to track that journey of this. I think it helps all of us learn. It helps all of us retain how these crypto markets move. And so we are watching Ethereum in real time make this move. The question is, as I talk about this, and we're going to get some hints on the daily, will we even get the pullback to the triangle? This is a move to around $2,700 for Ethereum. So from where Ethereum is right now, we're looking at like a 30% move for Ethereum. Sounds crazy, but this is something that could happen in like a week, right? Ethereum could just have a massive breakout, boom, $2,700. Now, the journey to that area, I think, is best illustrated on the daily chart. And I want to take a look at that. But just before I do, I want to just mention to you, what happens here with this potential busted pattern is very important for altcoins. Meaning, if the busted pattern fails, it's just because Bitcoin likely and altcoins are falling lower and still needing to put in some type of bottom formation after this fall. If the pullback happens, now we're entering this massive macro pivot, potential pivot, because we need the bullish confirmation. A break into the apex, right? So we need to get above the trend line. We don't want to see rejection and fall. And we need to get above these moving averages. Incredibly important bull market moving averages. The 20 and the 50 are like exactly confluent with each other, around $3,000. If Ethereum can make the move, I don't know how long it would take, and start closing weekly candles above this area, we might be able to start talking about the altcoin bull market beginning. And this is the whole reason why I've been tracking this entire potential busted pattern for so long, is because this could be the setup, a busted pattern, meaning the fake out to the downside. This could be the setup for the bull market for Ethereum and altcoins, I should say. So to get to that busted pattern, that yellow trend line, just look at where Ethereum is. It just broke above the 20-day moving average. We have a ways to go. Meaning even today, Ethereum needs to close a daily candle above. It's looking good so far, right? We have a little bit of a separation from the 20-day moving average, like $80 or so. It's not crazy, but then we need to see continued closes above the 20-day moving average. You can just see we failed right here. We got a little break above, and then it just failed to go lower. We had resistance here. We had resistance here. We've had resistance this whole way down. We need to flip that. And the Ethereum charts are starting to look like it is potentially happening and in play, but we need to track this on the very short term. So we're not there yet in terms of obviously getting to this area, the pullback area, but even along the way, we have a resistance area around 2350. So not too far, but that's probably the next target for Ethereum. From where it is right now, we're looking at around a 12% move for Ethereum. We want to see a bullish week this week going into next week to get this move so we can continue trending to this area. I know 30% move to the yellow trend line seems like a lot, and it might be choppy. It might not happen very quickly. We can make a move to the 50, rejection, come back down to test the 20, and then we're boom. And then it's well into April, and then we're finally getting the Ethereum move to just under 3,000. So I'm going to continue tracking this journey for Ethereum because I think it plays heavily into altcoin markets here in general and the beginning of the altcoin bull market. This is just an illustration. It's just a roadmap of what the altcoin bull market can look like as it sets up. So as we start this week, this is kind of what I'm watching. This is what's going on. I appreciate each and every one of you cruising through. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. We're almost at 400,000, which is crazy to me. And we're just getting started. If you enjoyed the video, please smash that like button. I'll see you in the next video. God bless.